Okay, Boker Tov, this is Daf Tes, Perek Sheni, starting the next Perek. The case is Hareini Nazir and Agrogros and Advela. He said a strange lesson. I'm a Nazir from figs. Agrogros is dried figs, Dvela is a fig cake. Nazir has nothing to do with figs. It has to do with wine. So he invented something. He said something that L'chorah doesn't make sense. So what do we do with this? What do we do with the statement that he says, I'm a Nazir, hereby a Nazir from Agrogros and Dvela? B'sham Yom Nazir. So he's a full-fledged Nazir. He's also on wine and everything. Nazir. Okay. Now the word Nazir really means to be separated from. If someone would have said, "I'm separating myself from Gorgos and Vela," he might have meant a Shavua, or maybe you could fit in some kind of lashon of neder. But the Gemara is still looking at the word Nazir. That's an official formula that the Torah calls a Nazir. It doesn't just mean separated. It means a Nazir, like the Torah calls a Nazir, like they'd say in English with a capital N, such thing called a Nazir. So Beishamai says that's what he meant. He meant a Nazir. How do you say Gorgos and the Vela? We have to figure it out. He still says he's not a Nazir. In the Mishnah, it doesn't say openly, is he usher on the figs? That's right. So it seems that everybody, I'm not sure if I got it right, that at this point, the Mishnah holds that he's surely not usher on the Gorgos and the Vela, that he's not going to be usher on the figs. The only question is he a Nazir or not? It doesn't talk about is he usher in the figs.
Right, because it's not neder and Nazir is not chal, so it's nothing. It's a stam shtiel.
Maybe. And the Machlokes says is he a Nazir or not? Rabbi Yehuda seems to argue on the Tanakama. Am Rabbi Yehuda af kashamu beishamai la amru ela b'omer harein olai. There's some say be'omer or ke'omer seems to be the better girsa. There's a girsa, I think that so at least some goes ke'omer. Even Beishamai, Rabbi is saying that no one holds he's a Nazir. Even Beishamai doesn't know that he's a Nazir. But Beishamai holds that he is usher in figs. And it's as if he would say that I'm ushering the figs. Don't take Beishamai to mean that he's a Nazir. Beishamai is saying that he's usher, no one holds he's a Nazir. He's usher in figs. And Beisil will probably hold that he's not even usher in that. So I'm suggesting everything I say today. I think every day I just think, but today I'm not even sure of that. But Tanakama would say that Machlokes is if he's a Nazir or not, and according to everybody, he's not usher in the fig. Now Buddha says everyone knows he's not a Nazir. The question is only if he's usher in the figs. Try that. So the Gemara starts. Beishamai is the one who says he's a Nazir. Rainy Nazir and the gross when Beishamai say that is a Nazir. So the question is, there's no such thing. Well, Nazir doesn't mean that. So how come if he says these words, why should he say that he's a Nazir? The words that he said doesn't mean that. Why is he a Nazir? The Torah says, when the Torah says what a Nazir is, it means that he's also on grapes, whatever's made from the grapevine. So when he says that he's also from figs, why should it mean that he's a Nazir? It shouldn't be a Nazir. The answer is Beishamai Sabri like Rav Meir, Damar Ein Adam Motzi Devav L'Batala. Beishamai holds like Rav Meir that we find someplace else that he says a person doesn't speak in vain. When a person says something, he doesn't talk shtuyot. He doesn't say foolish things. You have to make sense out of it. You have to make sense of what he says. So this statement is a shtus. This statement seems to be a foolishness. A Nazir from figs. There's no such thing as a Nazir from figs. So we have to make sense out of him. So how do we make sense out of him? He says a Nazir. And even though he said afterwards Gorgos and the Vela, so it seems that we ignore that. He said he's a Nazir, so he's a Nazir. And the rest of it, we don't hear what he says. The place that Rav Meir, where do we find that Rav Meir says the Ein Adam Motzi Devav L'Batala? Just a little background here. Taisus brings down that the Gemara in Erchin talks about somebody said, V'homer Eirech Kli Olai. Rav Meir says, Adam Yodea She'ein Eirech Kli, and he meant L'Shem Damen. The Erchin, there's a parsha of Erchin in the Torah that talks about a man, a woman, which age. The age and gender is koveya how much she has to pay for erchin. But there is no such thing as an erech about vessel. There's no such thing. There's damim. Damim means you can talk about the value, but there's no such thing as erech kli alai. So the one say there's no such thing. Ein erchin lekli. There's no such thing as erchin for a kli, and therefore he doesn't have to give anything. But Meir says that a person knows that. A person knows that no such thing as erech lekli. So when he said erech kli alai, he must have meant damim. and therefore he has to pay the value of the kli hektish. Because the fisha ain adam can't be that he said shtus. According to Rabbanan, he said shtus. He said the erech kli. But Meir holds that a person doesn't say shtus. You have to attribute some sense to his words.
If you would ask me, some people say shtiyot and some people don't. How do you?
You usually have that kasha and many gemaras.
Yeah, I don't get
That depends on the people and the place and circumstance, times. I don't know. It's a general question. And here too, the Gemara is saying, going to Rameir, other midei shein is yes and he must have meant l'shem is yours. So that's how the Gemara explains Beis Shammai, that the words that he says, I'm a Nazir from figs, doesn't make sense. You have to make sense out of it. So he meant a Nazir. A regular Nazir with all the looking parshas no, so you see what a Nazir is. And he said figs, I don't know. We'll put it aside, put it into the freezer. We don't hear that. Now the Gemara says, why does Beis Hillel hold? Beis Hillel holds that he's not a Nazir. You might have said that Beis Hillel holds that people do talk shtuyot. So he said, I'm a Nazir from figs, and it doesn't make sense. So we tell him to go home. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says, Beis Hillel is how we look at Yossi. Now, from the impression that I first got is that the Gemara is holding Rav Meir against Rav Yossi. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai holds like Rav Meir, Beis Hillel holds like Rav Yossi, which would sound like if you go someplace and you'll find the machlokus Rav Meir and Rav Yossi about this issue. But it doesn't seem like that. There is no machlokus between Rav Meir and Rav Yossi about what the Gemara says now, that a person doesn't say shtuyot. This brings down also that the issue of Rav Yossi is a different subject we were spoken about. Here is Rav Yossi. Where is this? Rav Yossi is talking about Harezu. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Tamur Sola, Tamur Shlomen. If somebody said there's a din of Tamur that a person can announce on an animal that Harezu Tamur, you're not allowed to do it, but if you do it, it takes effect. So he said on the animal, this is a Tamur Sola. Means he had a korban ola over there and he had an animal of Chulin, and he said this is a Tamur of the Ola. You could do that. I mean, you're not allowed to do that, but if you do that, it takes effect. There's also a thing of Tamur Shlomim. If there was a korban Shlomim over there, and he said this chulin should be like the Shlomim, so it becomes a Shlomim, Tamur Shlomim. But he said both of them. Harezu, Tamur Sola, Tamur Shlomim. Now that doesn't make sense. It can't be both of them. It can't be both of them. Over there is a Rav Meir, but Rav Meir doesn't say that a person doesn't say shtus. Rav Meir says the first thing he says registers, and it's a Tamur Sola, and the Tamur Sola can't become a Tamur Shlomim. But the Yossi says that you accept everything that he said, and how are you going to do that? It can't be a Tamur Sola and a Tamur Shlomim. So Yossi says, Tirach Shetistoiv, let it pasture until it gets a moon. Hear everything that he says and make sense, do something with it. How can you make an animal to be half and half? You wait till it gets a moon, you sell it, and then with the money you can buy, it'll be half an ola, half a shlomim. And so the one is more continue with this. Well, must be still a whole. I'm sorry, that was a mistake. Back to the Gemara. They still sound like Rav Yossi, a different Rav Yossi. He wasn't talking to Rav Meir. There is a Rav Meir over there by the Tamur Sola, Tamur Shlomim. Rav Meir says it's only a Tamur Sola, and then you can't do anything with it. It's a Tamur Sola. You can't listen to what he said. Shlomim does. But the Rav Yossi over there says that Bigmar Devar Adam Nitfas, that a person sees this also in the end of his words. If he said two things, so you have to listen to the whole sentence. He does say Tamur Sola, Tamur Shlomim, and figure out how to do that. So what does the Gemara mean? Therefore, over here that he said, I'm a Nazir from figs.
Wait a second. But says the second thing is
both of them. You have to put in the word like af bigmar. You have both of them. So he says, what do you do with it? You wait. You can't make a korban to be both.
Right.
So you wait till it gets a mum, and then with the money you sell it, and with the money you buy half the money you buy all half the money for a shlam. So he says you have to hear everything that he says. So Meir says he says the first thing, it's a ola, then that thing else to do with it. And here the Gemara says, Beis Hillel, the Gemara could have said l'chora, Beis Hillel holds the person does say shtuyot, but the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says that he holds like Rabbi Yossi, he holds you have to hear the whole sentence. So how do you hear the whole sentence? He said, I'm a Nazir from figs. What does it mean? I'm a Nazir from figs. A Nazir is a Nazir, figs is figs. What does that have to do with a Nazir? So you're going to make sense out of it. We're going to say that everything made sense. That he changed his mind. And he said first Nazir, and then he changed his mind, and he said, I meant figs. The word Nazir means a Nazir. When it says Nazir, you go to Parshas Naso, you find what a Nazir is. We know what a Nazir is. Instead of any Nazir. And Tokadei Dibor, he said we're not grogos. So Rabbi Beis Hillel explains that he's changing his mind. He's being Chosebo, Tokadei Dibor. to be chosebo, usually you have to have a hataras nedarim, hataras nazirus. Here, torch dibur, he was chosebo, so he could be chosebo.
What's the difference between the Tainim and Yorgos? Veda and Yorgos?
Rogos are dried figs, individual dried figs, and the veil we make a cake out of them. For our purposes, it's not relevant. We could erase that part. Just talk about. Let's keep away from the confusion. Just talk about Aveni Nazim and Agrogos. That sentence doesn't make sense.
One getter. It's basically the two of them. Should be one get.
There's two examples you could talk about from blueberries.
That they're both figs.
No, it's okay. That's two kinds of figs. The dried figs like this, dried figs like that. That's but the point is that he said a nazir from figs, and there's no such thing as a nazir from figs. So Beis Shammai says that he's a nazir from why all the halachas of nazirus. He still says he's not. The one's trying to figure out what they're arguing about. Why does Beis Shammai make him a nazir? He said a nazir from figs. That's not a nazir. So the more put down of Meir. Beis Shammai knows like a Meir that says a person doesn't talk shtuyot. So he does say Hareni Nazir, and he's a nazir. And when you grow gross, we don't know what to do there. And he put it aside. He said he's a nazir, so he's a nazir. We'll get maybe back to the Grogros soon. They still say that you have to hear the whole sentence. And he said, he didn't say Hareni Nazir, he said Menag Grogros. So what does he mean to say? Nidra or Pischo Imo. Neder or Pischo Imo. He has a neder with the Pesach.
Imahu,
What?
Imahu, or who is the next
I'm
sentence?
sorry?
Who is the next sentence?
Who? Bahai, Neder or Pischo Imo. Period.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? That he's being chosebo. He's retracting. Nazir means a nazir. A nazir doesn't mean a nazir from Grogos. There's no such thing as a nazir from Grogos. But he said Aveni Nazir, and then Toch Dibo he was mitcharet. He regretted it, and he said Grogos. He could have
Where
said
did you get regretted?
that's the Pesach. The Pesach. The Pesach means that he's releasing it. He's undoing it.
Oh.
He's undoing it. How does he undo it? He could have said, "I take it back," but he didn't undo it. By doing that, he said he undid it by saying, "I'll be Asa and Grogos," as if to say, "Toch Dibur." He said, "No, forget that. Delete that, and I'll separate from. I'll abstain from Grogos."
Therefore, Hillel said there's nothing.
So he's not a Nazir. But the question is, that'll be Asa and Grogos. That kasha might still be a kasha. But right now, we just want to know if he's a Nazir or not. So Beis Shammai says he's a Nazir because you don't attribute to him shtuyot. So you don't see Hareni Nazir. And Beis says you hear to the whole sentence, and he meant to say, I'm a Nazir, and Turkey Dibo he retracted, and he said, I'll be Asa and Grogos. So therefore, the retraction is a successful retraction, and he's not a Nazir.
When
That's
somebody
Beis Hillel.
somebody makes a shvur in that, okay, does he have like within, like, by davening or something?
So we had the Gemara. He just reminded me that we had the Gemara. Turkey Dibo. He has to be passed to Turkey Dibo except for three things: by get and by kedushin. Where's the Gemara?
Divorce, marriage, and divorce, and then neder, not neder.
Where was that? Anybody remember where that Gemara was?
What was it for?
That was in Durham still? Was that still in Maseches Durham?
I think so, because I was listening to it 2 nights ago.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was.
Turkey Dibo?
It's still on your thing.
Once I hear this, I erase
Oh, you raised it.
after hearing it again. I keep on the tail end.
Anybody remember what that? It was true kedushin and gittin. Here it is. Chutz me'agadef about avodah zarah, mekadesh and megadesh.
What is it?
Megadef blasphemy and avodah zarah. So then he says, after Adam, he said he was megadef and Adam were ready to kill him. They take him to Bezin. He says, I take it back. So it's too late. They still kill him. And also kedushin and gittin. Somebody said and she said yes. And then they say forget about it. Too late. Also by a get. So
A regular thing.
But I thought those were exceptions.
right, a shvua, even also a shvua and a neder and a nazir, they could be talking. They could be. You could be talking. So that's what it says over here. That's what he did. What he's still going to say. This person, he said, "I'm any nazir," which means a nazir, like he says in the Torah. And right away, he said, "Menag Grogos." That means I'm changing my mind, and I'm going to be Asa and figs, but I'm not going to be a nazir. So that's why he's not a nazir. So now the Gemara goes back. Very nice. You explained Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, but then your explanation of Beis Hillel is so good that Beis Shammai doesn't make sense anymore because it's not a shtus. Beis Shammai just said he holds like a mayor that he didn't say shtus, so he didn't say shtus. If he said I'm a nazir from Grogos, I'm a nazir from figs, that's a shtus. But it's okay. He didn't mean that. So Beis Shammai he said therefore he says I'm already nazir, and you don't listen to the rest. But Beis Hillel also says he doesn't say shtus. And he didn't say shtus. He said I'm a nazir, and Torah he regretted it. So why are you saying you don't have Shat and Beis Shammai anymore? That seems to be the Gemara's kasha now. Beishamai nami neder pischo imohu. If you say that whole problem is bothering Beishamai, that as soon as say foolishness, he didn't say foolishness. The way Beis Hillel explains, he said, "I'm a Nazir," and Torah did, but he changed his mind.
That's kasha.
That's a kasha. We don't have Shat and Beishamai yet. Ella, now we're going to explain Beishamai. It's going to be a bit longer than we need, because they won't explain most of it already in short words. Now it's going to elaborate and then get to the point what they're arguing about. Ella Beishamai sabi l'krav meir domein adam motzi devav levatala. So far we knew that Beishamai holds like a mayor that a person doesn't say a foolishness. So therefore, we listen to the first words that he said, "I'm a Nazir," and then how about the next words that he said? So now he's going on to the way Beis Hillel understood that he's coming to mitchared. He's coming to retract and say that shula means to be shoel. To be shoel on is nazirus, which means to be mitchared. That he's going to retract and say that I am not a Nazir. I am going to only be usher in figs. So what's the problem? Beis Hillel is right, so let him retract. That they hold that you cannot retract. Even though there is such a thing as She'ela ben Nedarim, that's the whole thing about a Torah Nedarim, but he holds there's no such thing as She'ela b'Hektish or a She'ela ben Nazirus. Nazirus he puts together with Hektish for some reason, and the same way Beis Shammai holds, we had this thing that he holds ain't She'ela b'Hektish. And once you said something is Hektish, because over there goes, because Hektish, there's no place where Beis Shammai says Ferish ain't She'ela b'Hektish, but they say ain't Hektish b'Tos is a Hektish. That's a Mishnah that if a person made Hektish by mistake, Beis Shammai still says it's not hektish, but Beis Shammai says it is still hektish, and therefore there's no way to be sure. What does the person say? I didn't mean it. Okay, even though he didn't mean it, it's also hektish. So Beis Shammai does the how do you say it's stick in the wheel? But what stops the issue according to Beis Shammai, they also agree to everything Beis Hillel says, that a person doesn't say shtuyot, and therefore when he said I'm a Nazir, he didn't mean I'm a Nazir from Grogros. He meant I'm a Nazir. And then he changed his mind right away and he said, "I'm gonna grow gross." But Beis Shammai say you can't do that. You're not authorized to change your mind. So therefore, he remains a Nazir.
How do you learn from Hektish? They just say it like
Why is Nazir the same as
like it's
Hektish?
a given, but
Why is that so simple? Why is that simple? In the Nazir is Hektish. I'm just saying.
Given to Ein She'ela b'Hektish, Ein She'ela b'Nazirus.
So here the Taisus over here says. Let us notice that now after he asked, the Nazir is Kehektish, Taksiv Kadosh Yeh Gadol Pera. Since the pasuk calls the Nazir a Kadosh, he calls him a Kadosh. The pasuk says. So since he's called a Kadosh, that has the same thing as Hektish. Just like Hektish you can't retract, so also Nazir you can't retract. So now we have Shat and Beis Shammai.
So then is that going to be a kasha on Beis Hillel?
No, it's not coming. No, because Beis Hillel holds there is She'ela b'Hektish, there is She'ela b'Nazirus. If everything's starting back at She'ela b'Hektish, Beis Hillel holds the Hektish b'Tos is not Hektish, and therefore there is She'ela b'Hektish, and therefore there is She'ela b'Nazirus. So we should be happy at this point.
And what about Beis Shammai?
They hold you can't be shoel, you can't retract, you can't retract the
There's more than that
Hektish.
list that we just mentioned earlier on. There's more. Beis Shammai.
No, that's Torchei Dibur. You're right. But this will be a question of even not Torchei Dibur. You can't retract. You're right, but it's not a question of you're right. But it's not an issue of Torchei Dibur only. They hold that there's no She'ela. You can't do Hataras Hektish. You can't do Hataras Naziros, and you can't do Torchei Dibur either. That's what comes out. You're right that the point of it comes out that this is also a din in Torchei Dibur, which I didn't notice when I was preparing. That besides saying that you can't do Hataras Nadora, you can't do Hataras Naziros, Hataras Hektish, but you can't even be chosed about Torchei Dibur. That's a chiddush more than the Gemara says. Yeah, that's even a bigger chiddush than I would have thought. Even if you know that you can't be retract, but Torchei Dibur is that's what the Gemara seems to be saying. So we have now the Shat and the Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel that everyone holds that when a person says something that's a foolishness, we don't attribute a foolishness to him. Everybody knows that Nazir is from wine. Everybody knows that Nazir is not from pigs. So what did he mean to say? What are you going to make out of the sentence? So everybody says that he meant to say, I'm a Nazir, a regular Nazir. And Torchei Dibur, he changed his mind. He said, what am I doing? And he said, I'll be Asar in Grogros. And he changed his mind. He could have also said, forget about it, delete. But he did a little better, at least something, how do you call it? Like a compensation.
Because you can't change from that.
Right. That's the machlokes. That's the machlokes. Everyone says that everyone dissects, everyone analyzes the words. This is what he meant. He didn't say shtus. He said I'm any Nazir, and then Torchei Dibur, he changed his mind and he said Grogrus, and Beis Shammai says it doesn't work, and Beis Hillel says it does work. So the Gemara should be over. But the Gemara is not over, and it continues explaining Beis Hillel. And it brings a fancy thing. So the Mefarshim say that this only explains so far why they still say that he's not a Nazir. But is he usher in figs? He changed his mind and he retracted from the Nazirus. But he said, I'll take on figs. So let him be usher in figs. And the Mishnah holds, or the Gemara understands the Mishnah, that he's even mutter in figs. So why?
Because there's no Nazir. It's a non-entity. It doesn't exist.
So makes sense out
Because he
of it.
didn't use the word neder.
So here's the Gemara. That's what the Gemara is continuing now. And the one line up is Hillel.
It wasn't even a keynote.
Yeah, you might, if it's a kino is a question.
So the Gemara is not anymore discussing why he's not a Nazir. That we finished because he was Shoel on the Nazirus. But now the Beis Hillel Savik Rab Shimon. That's not Rab Shimon Poter Shelo is not the Kedei Chamas. So we're going now to a different opinion. We find someplace that's Rab Shimon, and that's talking about. We're going to see it on the base. The cases where he talked about. He made a promise. He made a donation to Hektish, not something which is not the normal way to do it. That's not. It doesn't exist. I think Gemara is going to give a few examples. We could just jump a second to Amud Beis to see the Mishnah. Where is that? Here it is. It's about
It's not that would be like to donate.
to donate. Right. Let it go. Yeah, right. The promise to the Hektish. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the top on Amud Beis. We'll do it soon just to get a little inkling. It says here, someone said, I'm going to bring a mincha from barley. There is no such thing as a mincha from barley. There is by carbon omer, there's by carbon sota, but no such thing as a minchas nedava. When somebody donates a carbon mincha, that's not one of the choices. He says something that doesn't make sense. Maybe we'll highlight these mistakes. One is going to be harei alai mincha l'havi min hasorin, or he said kemach. I'm going to bring from kemach. There's no such thing. It has to be soulless. It can't be kemach.
No.
So he says something that doesn't exist. Or he said shalom b'shem ulavona. Or he said chatzi yisara. All these cases are things that don't exist. So Rab Shimon says, no, I'm sorry. This is Tanakama. Oh, it's also sorry on Mechza.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Where are you reading?
In that Tanan, it says Shalom B'Shem.
Shalom B'Shem, without Shem and Levona.
Meaning that there's you always have
And you bring
obligated to
it
bring
with
Shem
it
and
anyway,
Levana.
and then you bring it even though it said without.
Right. So the mincha is supposed to be from chite, from wheat, soulless, with Shem and Levona, and it's supposed to be any sorrow. And here he made up his own things. He said, I'm going to be a mincha from barley. I'm going to bring a mincha from kemach. I'm going to bring a mincha without Shem and Levona. I'll bring a half of Yisrael, or I'll bring a Yisrael and a half. In all these cases, we interpret or we tell him that's what he meant. If he said sorry, he still has to bring chitim, kemach, he has to bring solus, he has to bring shemen and lavona. If he said a chatzi yisrael, he has to bring an yisrael and half, he has to bring 2. On all these things, Rab Shimon argues, and it says, Rab Shimon poter, shelo esnadev kederech hamisnadvin. That since he didn't say it the normal way, he didn't make a normal nedava, so we ignore the whole thing. So now we go back to Beis Hillel Bayas, when he said, that's the bottom of the page. If he said that I'm a Nazir from figs, he's not a Nazir from figs. Even though the reason why he's not a Nazir from the wine is because he was mitcharei. He changed his mind. Let him at least be an Nazir in Grogros. You don't say Nazir, there's no thing as a Nazir in Grogros. So even though we might say he meant to say he's Nazir in Grogros, we're not going to say that. That's the period over there. So whoever missed the beginning minute of the shir, I said that I don't know the rest, and we'll do a landing together. Now you have to hear it now. So I'm not sure. I don't think that it's confusing, but I'm confused. So the rest of it is unofficial. Yeah, for the Amud Beis. Maybe we'll jump around a little bit. I didn't get it. Maybe I don't want to confuse anybody, but try and maybe tomorrow get it better. I hope tomorrow. I didn't get it tomorrow.
Weinberger, is to teach the Chatzila that way.
Yeah, but that's different for many reasons.
He's one of your favorites.
But okay, I'll try. But I didn't see the Mefarshim and I got confused. So I'm happy I don't say a share for 10,000 people out there that you can't come with us to listen. But everybody's nice over here. So.
But you are recorded.
Okay. Our mission is against the following time. There's a Brisa that also quotes Homachlokas about saying I'm a Nazir from figs, and he holds differently than our Mishnah says. Tanya, Rav Nosson Omer, the same case of our Mishnah doesn't say the opening statement that he made I'm a Nazir from figs. Beishama Yomrim Nadur ben Nazir. Ubeisel Omer Nadur ve'ein Nazir. So in our Mishnah, as Machlokes was, is he a Nazir or not? And the Pasha says that our Mishnah holds that according to everybody, he's not usher in the figs. The word Nadur is going to mean that the neder does take effect, which neder? The figs. The Nazir part is going to talk about is he a Nazir or not? And the neder part is going to talk about is he usher in the figs. So in the our Mishnah, it said Machlokes was if he's a Nazir or not. So we're going to, Rabbi Yehuda is the safe of our Mishnah. If you scroll back to our Mishnah, so the Tanakhama said the arguing if he's a Nazir. Rabbi Yehuda said no, the arguing if he's usher and the figs. And according to Rabbi Yehuda L'chora, everyone holds that he's not a Nazir. So that was the Mishnah. The Mishnah did bring in the issue about the figs. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's a machlokes if he's usher in the figs. According to Tanakhama, he's surely not usher in the figs. What does Rabbi Nassan say? Rabbi Nassan is a Tanakh who's quoting machlokes b'sham v'yisrael. He says that everybody holds that he is usher in the figs. He has the same machlokes as we have. Is he a Nazir or not? Bishami says he's a Nazir. Yisrael says he's not a Nazir. But he says that everybody holds that he is usher in the figs. So our Mishnah, we explained that the reason why he's not usher in the figs is because he holds like a Shimon, that he wasn't Kedei Chametz Nadvin. He didn't do it in the normal way, so it doesn't take effect. To say I'm a Nazir from figs, nothing happens. And maybe Shammai also, I'm sorry. In the Mishnah, he's not usher in the figs. We didn't talk about Beishamai. Why is he not usher in the figs? This is usher in the figs. We didn't talk about Beishamai. The Gemara at the end just said that Beisilo holds that he can't. He could retract. Okay, if he could retract, so be usher in the figs. He's not a Nazir. Let him be usher in the figs. That the Gemara said he holds like Rav Shimon. We didn't discuss Beishamai in our Mishnah holds that he cannot retract, so he's a Nazir. But is he also usher? So I guess the Gemara didn't discuss that. What does Beishamai hold as far as the figs? The retraction is not a good retraction. So he said, it's a Nazir, you're a Nazir. Now I tried to retract, it doesn't work. So we don't hear it at all for some reason. He meant to retract. I don't know why. I don't have anything about that. But here in the Brisa, Rav Nassan argues in our Mishnah and says that everybody holds that he is usher in the figs. Both Beishamai and Beistil both say he is usher in the figs. The Machlokes is only about the Naziros, like we said. Like in our Mishnah also the Machlokes about the Naziros. Beishamai says he's a Nazir, Beistil says not. But as far as being usher in the figs, everybody holds that he is usher in the figs. And that's the end of the Brisa. And now the Gemara explains this Brisa. Beishamai Savi Lo Kirab Meir. What's Rav Meir? We know Rav Meir is the one who says that person doesn't say foolishness. And that's the reason for what? That's the reason why he meant to say I'm a Nazir. And as we said, Beishamai holds he can't retract. That's the reason why Beishamai says that he's a Nazir. And he also holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Who's Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda is the one in our Mishnah that says that Beishamai says that it is a neder. But it's very strange to say that Beishamai holds like Rabbi Yehuda. That doesn't seem to make sense. Beishamai holds like Rabbi Yehuda. You never say such a thing. Rabbi Yehuda was a later Tana who was quoting the Shittas of Beishamai Yisrael that are much earlier. So what is it? So Rabbi Yehuda did say that according to Beishamai, the neder yes, but to say Beishamai holds like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda. So yeah, but read the sheet that I want. I thought first Rabbi Yehuda Shita means there's something about Yagis and Rabbi Shimon that says Ein Adam Shlosh Ladif K'derech HaMisnadvin. If there's Rabbi Yehuda over there that argues, so then it would make more sense to me that in that machlokas, you're right. I don't care if it's later generation, but that concept that they argued about, if a person says something that doesn't make sense, Shlosh Ladif K'derech HaMisnadvin. If Shimon says you ignore it, and the Chachamim say you don't ignore it. If Yehuda is the Chachamim, then I can understand that the issue about making a neder goes into that machlokas. But to say Rabbi Yehuda, that's like saying there's a machlokes what somebody said, like a machlokes such a Abul Yashiv said, and a small Rav said, a smaller Rav said, I heard this from Abul Yashiv. So you say Abul Yashiv holds like that person, and how he was quoted doesn't the issue of Meir. We know that the same Meir is also later than Beishamai, but in the machlokes of Meir, if Adam Motzi Dvav Levatala, so Beishamai holds that concept, and therefore when he said I made Nazir, he meant the Nazir, and he's just trying to retract. He can't retract. But this I don't get. I would try to say that Rabbi Yehuda means that he's the Madna Amar that says that Adam Afilu shelo snadv kederech hamasnadvin, we still interpret it to mean something that makes sense. And we'll say that when he said Sa'orim, he meant he has to bring chitin. But I'm just holding that as a, I don't know. And Beis Hillel, what is Beis Hillel? Beis Hillel says that he's not a Nazir. The Gemara explained the reason why he's not a Nazir, because he retracted. That the Gemara explained already. But Sabi Lo Kirabi, now he says Rabbi Yossi. Who's Rabbi Yossi? Yeah, so the Rishonim had a different gears. The Rishonim had a gears of Rabbi Yehuda here also. Beis Hillel Sabi Lo Rabbi Yehuda. The Yehuda is the same Rabbi Yehuda as that. Both of them say he's another. He's not door. Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah said that according to Beis Hillel is not Nador. And here we say according to Beis Hillel he is Nador. He is also in the Grogros. So I'm confused. If it has to do with the Rabbi Yehuda, a different Rabbi Yehuda we didn't hear about, that he's going to be right here in the coming up Mishnah. We spoke about Rav Shimon over here. So there was a Tanakama. Tanakama said in all these things that even though Shlo Sadav Kederech HaMasnadvin, it still takes effect. If he said Sa'orim, it means Chitim. If it says Kamach, it means Solas. If this blue, if this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, then maybe it makes more sense. That's more readable. The Mishnah, we're not talking about the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah. We're talking about the Rabbi Yehuda of that Mishnah. That there's such a thing that a person says something that's not the regular way to talk, we still make sense out of it. So therefore, even though he said Aveni Nazir Min Gross, doesn't make sense. You don't talk that way, and that's why our Mishnah said that the neder does not take effect on the figs. But Rabbi Nosson holds that both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel hold like Rabbi Yehuda as far as that issue, and they will be also on the figs. So we'll leave that as a possibility. If anybody has anything better, so we'll happy to hear. There's another version of Rabbi Nosson. The first one we did was on the top line of Nosson Nomer. Lishnachmin on the fourth line is going to be a different version of Rabbi Nosson. Lishnachmin Amila. There's some of a different version in Rabbi Nosson. Rabbi Nosson Nomer Beis Shammai Omrim Nador ve'Eino Nazir. Here, Eino Nazir. And Beis Hillel Omrim Lo Nador ve'Lo Nazir. According to this, everybody holds that he's not a Nazir, which is almost like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah that everybody else is not a Nazir. Machlokes only is he Aser in figs. It sounds almost like that. That according to Beis Shammai, he's Aser in the figs. According to Beis Hillel, he's not Aser in the figs. And everybody holds that he's not a Nazir. And now the Gemara explains that version. Beis Shammai ke Rabbi Yehuda. Beis Hillel ke Rabbi Shimon. So if I could invent, I didn't see the Rishonim. I got confused. Now I'm reading it better than I did in the preparation. That if there's a Rabbi Yehuda that holds, and this following the next machlokes, if we could put on the first Tanakama here, different Rabbi Yehuda, then the Gemara seems to read.
The way you said it should, where there's written Rabbi Yossi, it should be Rabbi Yehuda.
Yeah, that the Rishonim did. You see that Rishonim have that.
I mean, once you see that, it makes it easy for you.
Yeah, but the question is only who's this Rabbi Yehuda we're talking about? The Rishonim seem to say what I saw, that they talk about Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah, and that is not making sense to me. I'm not getting that. But as we're talking, if you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda is the Tanakama of the Mishnah coming up right now about Mincha Men Asorim, Mincha Men Akemach, if the Tanakama is Rabbi Yehuda, so then the Gemara, I think, is more readable, but I didn't see such a pshat yet. So if it's okay, if we take that as a possible tentative pshat, maybe we'll erase it tomorrow. The Gemara continues. We mentioned about Rab Shimon. We're bringing down Rab Shimon now. It's not Nasam, a Mishnah in Menachos, which we just learned it a minute ago. I'm making upon myself a neder to bring a korban mincha from barley. So the lacha is yavi min achitin, because there's no such thing as a mincha min hasorim. If he said mincha lavi min kemach, kemach is we call kemach flour, and solus we call.
Kemach is very fine, and solus is thicker.
Right, very good. Most people don't know that. Most people in the Cheder, the Rebbe teaches that solus is fine flour. Isn't that everybody knows? Solus is the fine, that's the opposite. The kemach is the coarse.
We don't use fine flour for almost anything, as far as I know.
Solus.
Who's we?
I mean, in avoda.
Right, because you know,
There's no kemach.
because you know that solus means the coarse flour. But people don't get the Cheder Rebbe didn't say that. The old Cheder Rebbe. They always used to translate the fine flour. So what's kemach? So I think it's a mistake. In Mishnah Mufresh, we looked it up. That solus is when you grind it. You grind it in a rechaim shel grisen, like something that's used to grind peas. And it's not. Okay, I forgot the details. But and then over there it says when you want to check if it's good or not, so you stick your hand in, and if kemach comes out, it's not good. Kemach is the
Right,
fine,
there you
kemach
go.
is the fine flour
That's a
that we would
no-no.
call fine. Can't get finer than our flour. That's not good. The powder stuff is not good. It has to be coarse. I remember we came to Eretz Yisrael, we moved, so I went to the store and to buy flour, and I saw kemach and solus. So I bought the solus, of course, you know. I come home, and it's semolina. It was farina. So I said, what is this? So the Cheder Rebbe was wrong. So I thought that Hebrew language made a mistake, but I found out that they're right, and the Cheder Rebbe was wrong. That solus,
it was semolina.
solus is semolina,
The Rebbe
and
makes-
kemach is flour, fine flour, and the kemach is not good for a
The
minute.
Cheder Rebbe was basing it on, if I may suggest, on that the solus is the finest of all
But the word fine,
although that are
right.
offered in on
But
this-
the word
on
fine-
Mizbeach, solus
Right.
is the most fine.
so what is fine?
So he's basing
fine,
it on
what do you
the
mean?
knowledge of Torah.
What
not
else-
on-
What else is one of them is bad? What do you mean?
I thought there's coarser grains. There's other.
No. This is it. Whenever you bring, you have to bring solus.
Cracked wheat is cracked.
That's not on the mizbeach.
Oh, what is that?
I think the pshat of the Rebbe, he heard from his Rebbe that it's the best. The best solus is the best. So he said it's the finest.
What's Zemel? Zemel, that's what they used to teach it in Michigan.
So that sounds a little bit more like semolina. Semolina, I'm not sure, but I think that most people translate it as fine flour, and
I
they
also thought.
the Rebbe thinks also.
What's modern day bulgur? Bulgur, it's cracked wheat, finely cracked, not.
So they are different. The Gemara talks about there's cut into there's cut into half and a third and a quarter and a fifth. So, but
That's the Rebbe saying that.
no, I know what the Rebbe meant. The Rebbe meant fine flour, and he made a mistake. But the kemach is fine flour and it's not good. Fine means and the best is the solus, which is coarse, like we'll call it semolina. Anyway, that's just a fine. That's a side note. So if he said I'm going to bring a mincha from kemach, no such thing. So it means from solus. If he said I'm going to bring a mincha without shemen and lavona, it means neither shemen nor lavona. So then he has to bring shemen and lavona. No such thing as a mincha without shemen and lavona. If he said I'm going to bring chatzi yisara, a mincha, he has to bring a frolis, and no such thing as a mincha with half yisara. If he says yisara and a mechza, 1.5, he has to bring 2. That's all Tanakama, which maybe is Rabbi Yehuda.
I didn't get the last one. I thought that has to be a tenth. So what if he says a tenth and a half, why we bring?
No, you can bring many. You can bring a mincha of many Yisronim. The minimum is 1 Yisronim.
Oh, I see.
He could say 2, 3, 4, but he said 1.5. So that's 2. No such thing as 1.5. Rabbi Shimon has to be divisible.
31 days of.
Very nice. Line is
30
very
and
nice.
another one.
Right, very nice. If someone says 1 day in the zeros, he says it's a 30 days. He says a half Yisronim is a whole Yisronim. Rabbi Shimon Portish lo stadik derech ha-misnadvin, and I'm suggesting maybe Tanakama is Rabbi Yehuda. And that's what the Gemara said, that those who say that when he said I'm making an Naziris from figs, Rabbi Shimon will say that doesn't take effect. And maybe the Tanakama will say it does take effect and he should be usher in figs. That's the end of the Mishnah over there in Menachos. The rest of the Gemara is transferring us to Maseches Menachos. We're going to be in Menachos as if we just learned the Mishnah over there. And it's going to talk about our sugya as if we're learning Menachos and we're referring to Nazir. We're really a Nazir and we're down Menachos. But now we're copy and paste. We're learning Maseches Menachos. We're in Menachos now, and we're going to be talking about Nazir, over there in Nazir. So here we're learning Menachos. Who's the author of the Tanakhama? Who's the Tanakhama that says that when he says something that doesn't exist, he has to bring what does exist? If he said there's a mincha from barley, he has to bring a mincha from chitim. Who's the Tanakhama? Amar Chizkiya, b'machlok shnuya, u'be'shem Shammai. Chizkiya is an Amora. He's the Rebbe of Rabbi Yochanan. We're going to see soon. Rabbi Yochanan is going to argue. Just to make a point of this, this is Rabbi Chizkiya. We'll see soon the opponent is Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Chizkiya, that this Mishnah in Menachos is only according to Beis Shammai. Why? Lav Amri Beis Shammai kiyama min agrogus min advela. Having Nazir, achanami kiyama min asorin and maybe min achitim. So it's not like we learned till now. I'm doing a learning together. I don't know what it says. But now he goes to our Mishnah in Nazir, and he says, Beis Shammai says, if someone said, I'm a Nazir from Grogus, he's a Nazir. Even though that's not, he didn't talk the regular way. You make him into a Nazir. And he's attributing this to the Mishnah, the same thing as the Mishnah in the nachos, that if you say something that doesn't exist, so you bring it the way it does exist. He says a mincha from Sa'orim. That's like saying I'm a Nazir from figs. And if Shammai says a Nazir from figs makes you into a regular Nazir, so a mincha from Sa'orim makes you have to bring a mincha from chitim. So that's not the. I'm not on comfortable ground, because till now we didn't speak about this issue as far as the Nazir goes. We just spoke about this as far as is he chayv in grogros or not. Here and now we're quoting this whole thing about Kederach HaMesnatvim as far as the Nazir goes. Yes, but the way we explained the way Amar Aleph went.
The mice, that's what happened.
Yes, but it's not because of Kederach HaMesnatvim. L'chora, the way the Gemara explained till now, Hareni Nazir doesn't make sense. You have to make sense out of him. So the way the Gemara made sense was Hareni Nazir period. I mean, Agrogos you don't hear. He's saying that same thing over here. And but the Gemara brought in the point about Shlok Kederach. When the Gemara did bring down the point of Beis Hillel holds like Rav Shimon. What did the Gemara want Beis Hillel? The Gemara doesn't say Beis Shammai holds like Rav Shimon. The Gemara says Beis Hillel holds like Rav Shimon. What is that? So we said that L'chora means that why is he not a Nazir from the Grogros? Why is he not a Nazir from Grogros? And then we say Shlok Kederach HaMesnatvim. Now the Gemara is using the Shlok Kederach HaMesnatvim as far as becoming a Nazir, which maybe does make more sense, but the Gemara didn't say that before. So I'm not reconciling the two Gemaras. But here the Gemara says that Beis Shammai is the one who says that if he says a new way to learn the Mishnah, that Beis Shammai says if he says something that doesn't make sense, we'll make sense out of it. The same way, like over there, a mincha from barley doesn't make sense. Being a mincha from chitin. Here he said I'm a nazir from grogros. That doesn't make sense. It means a nazir from wine. That's what the Gemara seems to say over here. That was Chizkiah. And now Rabbi Yochanan argues. Rabbi Yochanan afilu tema debriakol. The Mishnah and Menachos could even be according to Beis Hillel, who says no such thing. That you said a nazir from grogros, you're not a nazir.
But here he would say that you.
And here he'd agree that if he said mincha from barley, you do bring chitim. Why? It's only if he explains himself afterwards. He says the guy who said, "I'm bringing, I'm donating." What did I do? I'm sorry. Again, elakach. That. Thank you so much. That the case that it said, I'm bringing a mincha from Sa'orim, he's trying to bring a mincha from Chitim, is only if he explains himself and says, I didn't know that. They tell him no such thing as a mincha from Sa'orim. He says, I didn't know that. If I would have known, I would have said from Chitim. Then he's chayv in Chitim. But if just this term alone, wouldn't be chayv. If he does say mincha b'lavim and Sa'orim, and he doesn't correct himself and say, if I would have known, I would have said Chitim, so then it would not be chayiv to bring a mincha from chitim, and in our Mishnah, we have to go back to our Mishnah. He said a nazir and agrogros, but he still says he's not a nazir. If he would say, if I would have known that no such thing as a nazir from grogros, I would have said that I'm a nazir from wine. Then they still might agree that he's a nazir from wine. The case is that he doesn't say.
How's the punctuation?
The Omer. He says the following: if I would have known that there's no such thing as making a neder from barley, I wouldn't have said barley, I would have said wheat, or the rest of the examples, solas, kama, all these things. If I would have known that there's no such thing as making it such a neder, I wouldn't have said, I would have made it away. So then, even Basil will agree.
Why does he say that?
After we ask him, we tell him, buddy, there's no such thing as mincha from Soren. So he says, even if I would have known, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, I want to bring a mincha. So then even Basil will agree that he is chayiv in the wheat. But in our Mishnah is when he doesn't correct him, he doesn't explain himself.
There's not a sheet there. The Yochanan is just saying it.
He's saying a pshat that even Beis Hillel is moda if he explains himself.
Because of the circumstances.
Because he explained himself.
Okay.
I'm not clear. I'm just reading the words. Nu Gemara, Amar Chizkiah. What?
Back to Menachos.
We're still in Menachos.
Yeah.
We're still in Menachos the whole time. We're looking at Nazir from a distance. Amar Chizkiah, Lo shanu v'lo shama ben asorim, avamar ben adashim. The Mishnah spoke about somebody who said, I'll bring a mincha from barley. Does he bring from wheat or not?
This case we just mentioned.
Right?
Yeah.
But he says, how about he wouldn't have said barley? He said lentil beans. I'm bringing a mincha from lentil beans. You're also going to say that according to Tanakama, he's supposed to bring lo ma'aseh v'lo klum. Even the Tanakama will also agree that he's not chayiv. Rav Shimon in the Mishnah said even by the case of barley also he doesn't bring anything. But Tanakama said if he said barley, he brings wheat. And here Chizkiah says that even according to Tanakama, if he would have said lentils, so then he also doesn't bring anything. And now was he's a Nazir from wine. And lentils from being a mincha is as far as pigs being Nazir. No such thing. They're also out there in left field. No such thing. Sorim, there is such a thing sometimes as sorim for mincha. Sota mincha somer, there is lentils, mamash out of space. There's no such thing. But a Nazir from Gorgus is also out of space. There's no such thing. So Chizkiah, if he explained that Mishnah, the reason why he has to bring wheat is because it's like Beis Shammai that says there's a Nazir from Gorgos, he's a Nazir. So there's nothing worse by saying Adashim. Also, you should say the same thing. Adashim to a mincha is like figs to a Nazir. And if Beis Shammai holds over there that he's a Nazir, the Kami Beis Shammai have a Nazir. So to over here, we should say that he has to bring a mincha of wheat. The Gemara answers, Other by Chizkiah. Chizkiah retracted. What did he retract? And he said, I take it back. I hold the way Rabbi Yochanan explained that this here it's different. The case is that he said, if I would have known, after they told me no such thing, he said, if I would have known, I would have said Chitin.
And that would
And that's
for Adashim.
And that for Adashim not. That's why he says
Because
for
why
Adashim not,
everybody-
because nobody
Nobody would mistake.
was mistaken. He's not saying it wasn't that he made a mistake and
He thought
he
there's some
thought
kind of a flower,
and he thought that he knows that the Torah also allows sometimes there is a mincha of sorim for Omer for Sota. So it's a reasonable mistake. But this is an unreasonable mistake, and it's not that he didn't make a mistake. He wanted to bring a mincha from Adashim, and just because and now he says if I would have said it's too far of a mistake to say that it also passes. So that's why he said. So he doesn't learn anymore the way he learned that the Mishnah in Menachos is like Beis Shammai that says a Nazir. That's true. Beis Shammai is very extreme. Beis Shammai says even a Nazir from Gorgus is a Nazir. He also would have held that a mincha from lentils also you got to bring a mincha from wheat. But he's saying no. The only reason why the Mishnah in Menachos says that he's chayiv to bring from wheat is because he explained himself. I didn't know, and if I would have known, I would have said from wheat, and that doesn't pass for lentils because therefore you can't say if you would have known. Everybody knows there's no mincha of lentils. The Gemara says, that's now the question: why should he retract? No one told him that it doesn't have to be Adash. Maybe Adashim also. He could have kept to his original pshat that the Mishnah in Menachos is like Beis Shammai that a Nazir from Gorgus is a Nazir. And so too, by mincha, if he said a mincha from Adashim, he should also bring wheat. And who told him to explain our Mishnah like Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore to say that Adashim is different, keep your own shot and say that even Adashim will be the same. Amarov must say he had a kasha from the Mishnah. He wasn't satisfied with his shot in the Mishnah over there in Menachos. Listening in Adashim, it should have Mishnah said a big chiddush. If I'm right, that the Mishnah in Menachos is because it holds like Beis Shammai, that someone can make himself a Nazir from Gorgos, he means a Nazir, it comes out that he's a Nazir. So the Mishnah says that a big chiddush. That not only if he said, I'm going to bring a mincha from barley, even if he would have said, I'm going to bring a mincha from lentils, also the din would be true. Since the Mishnah doesn't say that, these words they take out. These words don't make sense. I think, so they take these words out. So you can block out these words. So we continue. So back to the Hadashim case. So we had here that Chizkiah said, where did it start? This Chizkiah, Amar Chizkiah. Before we had here Amar Chizkiah, we'll also make it into some other color as before. Amar Chizkiah. They said only if he said Somna, if he said Adashim. And now Rabbi Yochanan is going to argue on that. Rabbi Yochanan is arguing on that Chizkiah. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Afilu Amar Min Adashim. In the Mishnah Menachos, they're arguing mamash. Each one took the opposite case. It should have been, if it would have been the way we thought in the beginning. Chizkiah said the pshat of Menachos over there is because it goes according to Beis Shammai. That just like he says, Rabbeinu Nazir when Agro grows, he comes a Nazir. So too, if he said, Arei alai mincha min asorim, it's he has to be from wheat. And Rabbi Yochanan said, no, it has to do because he said if I would have known, I would have said differently. So if they would have been consistent with their shita, Chizkiah would have said, even if he said Adashim, and Rabbi Yochanan would have said, only if he said barley, but not if he said Adashim. That would have been inconsistent. But each one took the other one side. So here the Gemara says that Chizkiah retracted. Chizkiah had arrived from the Mishnah that he's wrong, and therefore he goes on to Rabbi Yochanan's pshat, and he says that the reason over there in Menachos is because he explained himself, and he said, if I would have known, I would have said differently. And here Rabbi Yochanan surprisingly also says differently. Afilu min Adashim, that even if he said, I'm going to bring the mincha from Adashim, also he has to bring from wheat. And here the kasha doesn't make sense because Rabbi Yochanan said the only reason over there is high to bring wheat is because he says if I would have known. But by Adashim, he can't say if I would have known. He can't say if I would have known I would have bring water wheat because everybody knows no such thing as a mincha. And that's much kasha. Rabbi Yochanan is not being consistent with his own pshat. But Rabbi Yochanan, who Dama Boma Ila Yisi Odesh no Dim Kach Lo Yisi no Datikach Elakach. So that doesn't make sense. That according to Lishitasa, he should have said that only from barley. But if he said Adashim, then he can't say I would have said differently. My answer is you're right. Rabbi Yochanan himself would say only barley and not Adashim. So why is he saying Afilu min Adashim? The answer is the Dvar of the Chizkiah the Kamar. He's not talking his own language. He's talking Chizkiah's language. He's saying I hold what I hold. That the Mishnah is only if he said if I would have known, and by Adashim it doesn't apply. Yes, but you who held like that the Mishnah is Beis Shammai, and now you're giving in to me because of this kasha that should have said Adashim a big chiddush. You shouldn't be choser. You shouldn't retract. If you had your pshat, you should still continue your pshat. At my time of Kahadras, how come you retract from your pshat and you say that I'm right? Because the Mishnah said a big chiddush that even from Adashim also he has to bring chitim. That wouldn't be a reason for you to change your pshat. Maybe the Mishnah means to say not only. Okay, it goes without saying. Lomi boya means that's surely not a question. Even this. So the reason why it says Sorim, because Sorim is a big chiddush. Chizkiah thought that Adashim would have been a bigger chiddush than Sorim, and Rabbi Yochanan is telling him no, that it could be that keep the upshot, and Sorim is a bigger chiddush. Lomi boya ki amar me Adashim demaisei mincha ma'al yisa tikalamei ma'mehadehu dehada bei tfos loshin rishon. Not only if he said Adashim, I'm going to bring a mincha from Adashim, and we tell him you have to bring a mincha from wheat. You know why? Because he was chosebo, that he meant to retract. He said he knows no such thing as a mincha from Adashim, but he said a mincha from Adashim, and then Toch the Dibor he retracted, and he said no, I'll bring a regular mincha. No, I'm sorry, I said it all wrong. He said Arei alai mincha min Adashim. Right, he said Arei alai mincha min Adashim. So Arei alai mincha, the words mean a regular mincha. That's what the word, the mincha, regular mincha means a kosher mincha from wheat. And then he said min Adashim, maybe that's going to be a retraction. And if so, Fos Loshin Rishon. Maybe the reason why, a new pshat in the Mishnah over there. The reason why, if he said Arei alai lavi mincha, I didn't even highlight it. That's not so nice. I didn't realize that it's going to be something. He said Arei alai mincha lavi min asor. That's what he said. That's what he said. Or Arei alai mincha lavi min akema. Arei alai mincha lavi shalom l'shemen. He said Arei alai mincha. So maybe
where's that? That's up higher.
Right here. This is the what he wrote on the Mishnah. This is towards the beginning of the.
I see.
So maybe the reason why in all these cases he has to bring the kosher mincha. This is towards the top, about the seventh, eighth line. So maybe the reason why the Mishnah Tanakama says he has to bring once he said Arei alai mincha, that's it. Arei alai mincha, and that's what mincha means, a kosher from wheat, solas, shemen levona, yisaron. And then when he changes his mind and he says something else, he's changing his mind, and it's too late because he said Arei alai mincha. I guess even talk to the Dibur, you can't. I'm not sure. Tfos Loshin Rishon. So that would be more simple, that he has to bring a regular mincha, because when he said a regular mincha, he's not explaining himself in Adashim, he's retracting, and he can't retract. Ella, ki oma min asorin, vaday dachi kama, he kasha kamincha saomer, oh, kamincha sota tikto, shilo. Maybe over there he knows there's such a thing, since it is closer to being a mincha, he knows there's such things that a omer and a sota, there is such a thing as a mincha sorim. So he meant to say, if there is such a thing for a yachid also, I want to make such an adava, if not. And therefore, if we tell him there's no such thing, maybe he didn't mean to say that it's a Kamash Malan, the Ma'asim Menachitim. That's why the Mishnah have to say a big chiddush that even from Sa'orim also he has to bring a mincha. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan told the Chizkiah, if your only problem is this kasha, it's not such a kasha. Ad kan. So not so happy, but
That's the third time. 3 things is still no good. Not so happy, not so good.
but okay, what are the main problems of the way we had the shot today? The first, the Gemara talked about Reb Shimon, the whole Amud Beis, it talks about the first line, the bottom line in the first page seemed to talk about if he's chayiv to bring for figs. It wasn't talking about if he's chayiv to bring to be a Nazir. And the whole Amud Beis doesn't talk that way. The whole Amud Beis talks, that's the reason why you should be chayiv to be a Nazir, and the Reisha, Nubshat in the whole Reisha of Nazir, not Nazir. And also, this, all the times that I said 3 times Rabbi Yehuda over here, I don't know which Rabbi Yehuda it is. Is that Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah and Menachos? So, please come back tomorrow. Okay, yes, everybody. Thank you.